So what will happen to Sheriff Sean Steins? He is now under arrest for the vicious shooting of a judge. The judge's name is Kevin Mullins. Now this isn't just a regular judge or a bad day at the office and someone went postal. This is another example of wolf in sheep clothing, where they push a man to their breaking point and it's either help or help. Nobody does anything until they have to do something. No one gives a fuck until they have to give a fuck. So after doing a lot of research on this case, I found out that a deputy that worked in the jail was actually being investigated for raping an inmate in the judge's chambers. Depositions went out and the judge was involved in it. And at this same time, the sheriff who shot the judge, allegedly, right, was his bailiff. Now, they interviewed the judge basically saying, what the fuck? Like, you failed to do your duty. Like, what is going on here? Well, of course, nobody gets punished. That's how it always goes. When I talk about the type of corruption that I've experienced in prison, the violence, the constant just money, absolute power. It's what happens when you give cowards power. Now, the sheriff went in there on the day of the shooting and asked to use the judge's phone. Witnesses heard him say, in so many words, "Why is my teenage daughter's number in your phone?" Then he started to say that you're going to kidnap my wife and child, his daughter. He eventually opens fire, unloading multiple rounds, even after the guy was completely dead, and just turned himself in, killed him. Now, as a father and a man that loves his child, this is what happens when you push a man to the edge. There is no coincidence in any of this corruption. Everybody can say, I heard this. The fact is this. They're even investigating a rape in a judge's chamber and nobody's held accountable, and there's a minor's number in the judge's phone. They got away with the rape. They probably were putting pressure on this dude. You know, he probably did something he regretted. And then they started fucking with his kid. Because the thing about these demonic, evil, chomo, predator motherfuckers is when they get away with something, they escalate and escalate until somebody finally gets killed. You see it all the time. Families report stuff. Nobody does anything. They make you look crazy. Then finally a dad or a mom snaps, like this father, unloads a clip. And everybody's saying, oh, man, what were the signs? What was the motive? Come on, man. They were running this little small town corruption gig. Power. Just like the corrections officers. These are guys and women that have never had power and authority over a human being's life. And obviously there's a lot of piece of shits in there, but they've never had access to what a lot of these inmates can bring. Money, power, women, you know, for like relationships, just endless amounts of violence, money, just sex, greed. And then you mix it with a person that's making $14 an hour that has to have guys squat and cough for a living. They're going to take that money almost every time. It's a mousetrap. So you could understand that, even though it's demonic, twisted shit. I explained a lot of the corruption. Now, what I can understand is a judge that is the voice of reason, is the person that basically decides the fate of thousands and thousands a year, has a inmate woman in the chambers alone with a deputy, and they didn't have a camera then, and now there's a camera surveillance on the judge, almost say 24 hours or however long he works, 8 to 4, whatever the hours are. Nobody gets convicted, and you have a minor's number in your phone, and a sheriff of 20 years, a decorated sheriff who's done a lot for the community, has helped juveniles, had helped people going through addiction, goes in there and sees his daughter's number in your phone. No, he already knew what was up. He wanted to test it, saw that even more, and pulled out, unloaded, because in the courthouse, No one can have guns except the sheriffs, the bailiffs. And the way I view it is like this. The sheriff had been working for this judge for a long time. And when they had raped that inmate in the judge's chambers, he probably was sick to his stomach. But he didn't know enough. Maybe did, maybe didn't. But it fucked with him. And then they started fucking with his kid. And with everything, every little piece of the puzzle, you don't fuck with a man's kid. But when you're the sheriff and it's the judge and other police officers fucking with your wife and child, who do you go to? You go to that 9mm basically. That's why, unfortunately, when the system fails you, you see it with Cain Velasquez. You've seen it with this sheriff. You see it with Gary over there in Louisiana. Time and time again, they will push you to your breaking point. You will show them evidence. You will show them everything. And they will ignore it, until literally there is such a violation and atrocity that either you have to do something to protect your family, or they're like, okay, someone was killed or it's gone too far, and it's twisted. There is no coincidences when it comes to corruption. As we see, corruption is at its highest level it's ever been as far as exposure. Every star that we once looked up to as children or watched on TV, we're finding out not only were they sick and twisted, but they were demonic chomo motherfuckers. Judges are getting shot by sheriffs for talking to their daughters. Having inmates alone in the judge's chambers. I grew up in the system, unfortunately, and I've never seen a female inmate enter a judge's chamber alone. And then they admit and they find out she was raped and nobody gets in trouble. And then they find a minor's number in his phone, and the sheriff of all people of 20 years, living a life with his wife, his kids, shoots him. And it wasn't just a 1, 2, 3 shot double tap. It was shoot him, stand over him, empty the clip. That's personal. That's rage. That's anger. That is tears in his eyes. And watch as we see time and time again, the corruption is getting exposed to the highest level. Nothing surprises me after what I've seen in prison. When I tell stories, people are like, no way, it's not possible. I literally have to go and get the videos of it to show this is the reality of the world we live in. When you give cowards power, when we trust people with our lives, with our children's lives, and we're not vigilant, this is what happens. Stay out, stay free, us.